Tonight, we begin with something quieter, something softer, but no less powerful. We're stepping into ancient Judea, not with crowns and conquests, but with sandals in the dust. Not into temples or battlefields, but into back streets, stables, and long-forgotten corners of the world. This is not the story of a king as we imagine them. It's the story of a child, a carpenter, a healer, a voice that spoke gently, but carried eternity in every word. So, before we follow that voice too far into the hills, take a moment to like the video only if slow, sacred storytelling is your kind of thing. If it helps your heart slow down, if it gives your mind a place to rest, subscribe. And in the comments, let me know. Where are you listening from? What time is it for you right now? It still amazes me that this little quiet space stretches across the world. Now take a breath and walk with me into a world of dusty roads and olive trees, where the sky cracked open over a manger, where bread was broken and blind eyes opened, and where one man, with no army, no wealth, and no home, changed the world, not with force, but with love. Tonight, we slip quietly into the silence of ancient earth. The wind is still. The stars are cold and bright above Bethlehem. A child is about to be born, not in gold, not in power, but in straw and shadows. His breath will be soft, but his presence will shift the history itself. This is not a story of thunder and fury. This is a story of gentle beginnings, quiet miracles, and the sacred life of Jesus, from manger to Messiah. We arrive not at a palace, but at the edge of a stable, tucked against the wall of a weary village. The stones are cold. The air smells of hay and dust, mingled with the distant scent of bread still warm in ovens nearby. The streets are quiet now. Bethlehem sleeps beneath the weight of travelers and taxes, unaware that heaven is about to touch earth in the humblest way. Mary and Joseph have come far, worn down by the journey, guided only by faith and necessity. There was no room in the inn, only this sliver of space carved out behind animals and straw. And yet, here, in this forgotten corner, divinity finds its entry. Mary lies still, her breathing labored but steady. Joseph kneels beside her, eyes wide with both awe and helplessness. He has no midwife, no tools, no plan beyond trust. And so he watches, supports, prays, holds. Around them, animals shift. A donkey exhales into the cold. A lamb bleats softly, sensing the change in the air. Something ancient is happening. Something new is being born. And then, at once, the moment arrives. A cry, not loud, not fierce, but piercing in its purity. Jesus is born, the promised child. Not heralded by kings, but swaddled in cloth, laid gently in a manger carved from stone and used to feed livestock. His first bed is rough and splintered, his first audience the poor and the meek, and still, all of heaven holds its breath. The Son has arrived. We watch as Mary gathers the newborn to her chest. She says nothing, but her eyes speak volumes, of pain, of peace, of something she doesn't yet fully understand. Joseph steadies her, his rough hands now trembling. They sit together in the dim light of a flickering oil lamp, wrapped in silence and the weight of what's just begun. Outside, shepherds stir. On the hills beyond Bethlehem, under the open sky, men keep watch over sheep. Their night is like any other until the darkness splits. A light, brilliant, otherworldly, pours down. An angel appears, radiant and still. And though they tremble, the message is simple. Do not be afraid. The words echo. A Savior has been born to you. He is Christ the Lord. And suddenly, the sky erupts, a chorus of angels. Music not heard in any human tongue. The heavens declare peace on earth, goodwill to men. And just as quickly as it came, The light fades. The shepherds blink in stunned silence. They gather their cloaks, their courage, and they run. Down the hillside into the town, toward the stable, toward the child, toward the answer. We are with them now. We enter again into the humble place where straw meets stone and divinity wears skin. The shepherds kneel, eyes wide, hearts pounding. They have no gifts, no offering, no understanding of theology or prophecy. Only wonder, only reverence. The child does not speak. He cannot. But already he draws in hearts like a flame in the cold. Mary watches. Joseph listens. The moment hangs, weightless and eternal. And so we remain, for just a while longer, here in this small corner of eternity. A stable, a child, a quiet beginning that will ripple through all of time. The stars still burn above Bethlehem, but tonight, one burns brighter than the rest. A child sleeps, the world shifts, and something sacred has begun. We begin again in the hush of Nazareth. The sun spills gently across stone walls and simple homes, warming the hills with quiet light. In this place of dust and fig trees the child grows, not with spectacle, but with steady grace. We see him first in the arms of Mary, now a mother shaped by wonder and weary nights. Her hands are soft from care, her eyes deeper than before. Joseph is there too, steady, protective, a man who once questioned, now transformed by quiet conviction. Together, they raise the boy not as a king, but as a son. We witness the rhythms of their days, bread kneaded in the morning, stories told by firelight, the soft hum of prayers whispered at dusk. Jesus, still small, follows his parents' footsteps through gardens and marketplaces. He watches, he listens. His gaze holds a stillness that feels older than his years. The villagers know him, but not fully. They call him quiet, kind, different in ways they cannot name. He helps his father shape wood. Tiny hands holding smooth grain, eyes fixed on the curve of each carving. Joseph shows him how to plane an edge, how to listen to the timber as it gives. Mary teaches him how to weave, how to light a lamp, how to hold silence. These are the unnoticed years, the sacred hiddenness, where the divine lives in ordinary moments. We walk with him through them. There are no miracles yet, no water turned to wine, no blind eyes opened, just a boy, growing, learning, anchored in humility. Then comes the pilgrimage. Jerusalem rises ahead, ancient and towering. It is the season of Passover, and the roads are thick with travelers. Jesus, now 12, walks with his parents among them. The air is rich with incense, spices, and song. The temple looms, massive, echoing with chants and footsteps. For many, it is overwhelming, but not for him. Here, in this sacred space, something awakens. After the festival, as the crowds drift away, Mary and Joseph begin the journey home. The dust lifts behind them, the road winding toward Nazareth, but Jesus is not with them. They assume he walks with cousins, neighbors, other boys, but the day passes and he is not found. Panic sets in. We feel it, rising in Mary's chest, thick in Joseph's throat. They retrace their steps, calling his name. The sun sets. They walk through shadow. On the third day, they find him, sitting among the teachers in the temple courts. Not silent, not hiding, but speaking, listening, asking, and answering. His voice, still young, carries questions that turn into revelations. The rabbis lean in, brows raised, curiosity blooming. They marvel not at his confidence, but at the depth beneath it. Mary rushes to him. Her voice is relief wrapped in reprimand. "Why have you done this to us?" And his answer, calm and clear, echoes with something eternal. "Did you not know I must be in my Father's house?" We feel the moment shift, not dramatically, but deeply. The child is more than a child, and yet he returns with them, back to Nazareth, back to silence, back to the slow unfolding. He's obedient, tender, and still. Years will pass before he steps into the wilderness, before crowds gather at his feet. But here, in this moment, we see the roots. A boy cradled between earth and heaven, the temple behind him, the future ahead, and in between, the gentle shaping of a life that will one day change the world, not by force, but by presence. We walk beside him, we wait, we watch, and we remember that even the Son of God grew in quiet places, among dust, questions, and the unspoken love of a humble home. We stand now on the banks of the Jordan River, where the sky stretches wide and the wind carries the scent of water and dust. Time has passed since the boy in the temple. Jesus is no longer a child. He walks now with the quiet confidence of a man shaped by silence and seasons. He has labored, listened, waited, and now the hour begins to stir. Around us, people gather in clusters, peasants, soldiers, widows, merchants, all drawn by the voice of one crying out in the wilderness. John, the baptizer, a wild man wrapped in camel's hair, eyes burning with conviction, hands weathered by ritual and fire. He speaks with thunder and urgency. Prepare the way of the Lord, make straight paths for him. His words cut through the air like prophecy come alive. He stands waist deep in the river, arms lifted, calling for repentance, not for tradition's sake, but for the cleansing of hearts. One by one they step forward, broken and seeking. And then we see him, Jesus, not pushing through the crowd, but moving among them, gentle, steady, present. There is no announcement, no trumpet, no sign, just footsteps in the sand. He enters the water. John pauses. His voice falters. He knows who stands before him. I need to be baptized by you, he whispers. But Jesus nods. Let it be so now. It is proper for us to fulfill all righteousness. And so John lowers him into the water, this man of no sin, humbling himself beneath the current. The river closes above his head, then parts as he rises. And in that moment, the heavens respond. The sky breaks open. A light descends like a dove, soft and shimmering. A voice, deep and eternal, echoes across the riverbank. This is my son, whom I love. With him, I am well pleased. We feel it in our bones. The earth does not shake, but something eternal shifts. The Spirit rests upon him, not for glory, but for purpose. And then, just as suddenly, the moment ends. The crowds murmur. The river flows on. But Jesus does not stay to gather followers. He turns, steps out of the water, and walks into the wilderness, alone. The Spirit leads him there, not away from power, but toward preparation. For 40 days, he wanders through sun-scorched land, among jagged rocks and thorn brush. The heat presses down. The nights are cold, and still he walks. No bread, no fire, no comfort. Only the silence of sand and the whisper of wind. Here he is tested, not in front of crowds, but in the solitude where all pretenses fall away. Hunger gnaws at him. His body weakens. And then the adversary comes, not in horror, but in suggestion. If you are the Son of God, turn these stones to bread. But Jesus answers not with power, but with Scripture. Man shall not live on bread alone. Again, he is tempted, lifted to the temple's pinnacle, dared to prove himself. Throw yourself down, the angels will catch you. And again, he resists. Do not put the Lord your God to the test. One last time, the enemy shows him the kingdoms of the world, glory, riches, dominion. Bow to me, he says, and it will all be yours. But Jesus stands firm. Worship the Lord your God and serve him only. With that, the tempter departs, the desert stills, and angels come, not in triumph, but in quiet comfort. They tend to him, not with spectacle, but with care. We watch from the edge of the wilderness. This is no ordinary beginning, no miracles, no sermons, only endurance, only obedience. Jesus has passed through fire before the world ever knew his name, and now, prepared in silence and tested in shadow, he steps forward, not to be crowned, but to call, not to be lifted, but to lift others. We leave the wilderness with him, changed. He does not speak yet, but already his presence speaks volumes. The dust clings to his feet, the sun to his shoulders, and the Spirit burns quietly in his chest. The time is near, the road ahead long, and the world is about to hear the voice that even the desert could not silence. We walk now along the shores of Galilee, where the water laps gently against the sand, and the morning mist hangs low over the hills. The wilderness lies behind us, but the quiet resolve of Jesus carries forward like the wind that moves across the surface of the lake. The sun is just beginning to rise, casting pale gold over the shoreline, and the day is waking with the scent of salt and fish and fire. It is here, not in a temple or a palace, that the next chapter begins. Jesus walks alone, his steps silent on the damp ground. But he is not seeking solitude. He is seeking hearts, those willing to follow, to trust, to leave everything behind for something they do not yet understand. In the distance, we see them, fishermen, rough-handed and sun-worn, casting their nets into the sea. They do not pause as he approaches. This is their routine, their livelihood, their inherited rhythm. Nets cast, nets pulled, fish sorted day after day. But today, their rhythm is about to break. Jesus calls out, not loudly, but with a voice that carries more weight than sound. "Come, follow me," he says, "and I will make you fishers of men." The words fall like stones into water, simple, clear, and impossible to ignore. Simon looks up, surprised, net in hand. Beside him, Andrew freezes mid-cast. They do not ask for an explanation. There is no contract, no destination offered, no promises made, only a call. And yet, they leave their nets, just like that. They follow. Further down the shore, two more brothers, James and John, sit in a boat with their father, Zebedee. They mend their nets, the fibers rough between their fingers. Jesus walks past, but he does not pass them by. He calls again, and again they leave. Not just nets, but family, inheritance, the life they knew. Zebedee watches as his sons step out of the boat and walk into the unknown. He does not call them back. The sea glistens behind them, but they do not turn around. They follow. We walk beside them now, this small gathering of ordinary men, drawn into an extraordinary story. They do not know what lies ahead, the crowds, the storms, the miracles, the sorrow. They only know this man walks with purpose, and his presence speaks of something eternal. There is no sermon yet, no spectacle, just a growing circle of hearts awakening to something sacred. Jesus does not demand credentials. He does not choose the powerful or the polished. He chooses the willing, the curious, the present, and as he gathers them, we see the beginning of a new kind of kingdom, not built on armies or thrones, but on friendship, faith, and daily steps taken together. They walk through villages now, past vendors and children, through the scent of baked bread and the murmur of everyday life. People glance, some curious, some skeptical, but something stirs in the dust behind their feet. A new way is forming, and we feel it. Jesus speaks little in these early days, but every word carries the weight of oceans. He does not rush. He does not explain everything. He simply walks and invites others to walk with him. We are reminded that the kingdom of heaven begins not with noise, but with a whisper, not with conquest, but with invitation. And so we follow too. We do not know where the road leads, but we know who leads us, and that is enough. The journey has begun, not in fanfare, but in footsteps, not in miracles, but in the simple act of saying yes. The fishermen did not ask for a sign. They did not wait for clarity. They heard the voice, and they followed. And so do we. We gather now on a hillside, the Sea of Galilee glimmering behind us like a mirror of the sky. The crowd is larger today. Word has begun to spread, not just of a man who teaches, but of one who sees, truly sees. They come from villages and farmlands, from marketplaces and fishing boats. Some lean on canes, some clutch children to their chests. All bring questions too heavy to speak aloud, and so we settle into the grass, into the silence, into the air that buzzes with expectation. Jesus stands before us, not elevated on a stage, but among us, the wind playing gently with his robes. His eyes move across the crowd, not seeking approval, but offering welcome. There is no scroll in his hands, no weapons at his side, only presence. He opens his mouth, and the words fall like water on dry ground. Blessed are the poor in spirit, for theirs is the kingdom of heaven. The crowd stirs. Some lean in. Others close their eyes. He is not teaching as the scribes do. He is not layering law upon law. He is peeling them back, exposing the soul beneath. Blessed are those who mourn, for they shall be comforted. We feel it. This is not a list of commands. It is a mirror, a melody, a map of mercy for the weary. Blessed are the meek, the peacemakers, the pure in heart. With each phrase the world tilts, power shifts, the low are lifted, the broken are honored, the unseen are held in light. These blessings are not earned, they are given, not to the strong, but to the surrendered, not to the famous, but to the faithful. The Beatitudes pour forth like a river of reversal, and in them we recognize ourselves, not who we pretend to be, but who we truly are. Jesus does not pause to gauge reaction. He does not seek applause. He continues, his voice gentle but resolute. You are the salt of the earth, the light of the world. And suddenly, we are not just observers, we are participants, called not to admiration, but to action, called to shine, to preserve, to live differently. The teachings are not easy. He speaks of turning the other cheek, of loving enemies, of giving without expecting return. He speaks of prayer, not as performance, but as communion. When you pray, go into your room, close the door, and pray to your Father who is unseen. He teaches of treasures not stored in barns or banks, but in hearts that do not rust. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. He speaks of anxiety, of trust, of lilies and sparrows. Do not worry about tomorrow, he says, and something in us loosens, not because life becomes easier, but because his words wrap us in assurance. His teachings unfold not like rules, but like invitations into stillness, into mercy, into the kind of life that flows from the inside out. We are not given formulas. We are given a new lens, a new way of seeing the world, of seeing each other and ourselves. The crowd is quiet now. Some cry, some nod slowly, some simply sit in awe. This is not the Messiah many expected, but it is the one our souls recognize. The sun begins to lower behind the hills. Still he speaks of narrow gates, of wolves in sheep's clothing, of wise and foolish builders. He is not offering ease, he is offering foundation. At the end, he does not rally us. He He simply finishes. And the silence that follows is not empty. It is full of conviction, of clarity, of something sacred that will stay with us long after our footsteps fade from this hillside. We rise slowly, changed. We do not carry answers. We carry seeds. And in the days to come, we will water them with our choices. We will stumble. We will forget. But these words, they will remain, etched into the inner places of who we are. Blessed are the poor in spirit. Blessed are we. Blessed is the path that begins in the quiet heart and leads into the wide and waiting world. We walk now through narrow streets and open fields where dust clings to the hems of robes and the cries of the weary echo in the wind. The teachings of Jesus have begun to take root, but something else now stirs the crowds. Whispers grow louder. There is talk not just of wisdom, but of power, of sight restored, of limbs strengthened, of lives transformed by a single touch. We follow him, this gentle teacher, into places of pain. Not grand halls, but alleyways. Not temples, but homes with broken walls and broken hearts. He does not wait for the worthy. He walks toward the wounded. It begins quietly. A leper, his skin pale and marked, approaches trembling. He should not be here. The law says he must remain apart, unseen, untouched. But Jesus does not step back. He steps forward. Lord, if you are willing, the man says, you can make me clean. And Jesus, eyes filled with compassion, reaches out, not with reluctance, but with love. I am willing, he says, be clean. And just like that, the disease is gone. Not with a flash, but with a breath. The man falls to his knees, not in fear, but in wonder. The news spreads, and the crowds grow. We watch as a centurion arrives, armor dusted from travel. He pleads for his servant, not himself. Just say the word, he tells Jesus, and I know he will be healed. And Jesus marvels, not at his position, but at his faith. The servant is healed without a hand being lifted. Mercy moves through space. In Capernaum, Peter's mother-in-law lies fevered and weak. Jesus enters the home, lifts her hand, and the fever flees like darkness before dawn. She rises, not just healed, but restored. She begins to serve, her strength returned not for herself, but for others. That evening, the house fills with the broken. Demons are cast out. Illnesses fade. The air is thick with awe. But there is no frenzy in him, only focus. He heals not to impress, but to restore. Not to elevate himself, but to lift others. We see it again and again. A man lowered through a roof by friends desperate for hope. Jesus sees their faith and says, your sins are forgiven. The crowd gasps. But then he says, rise, take your mat and walk. And the man does. Not because he earned it, not because he begged, but because mercy met him where he lay. A woman with bleeding that lasted 12 years, unseen, untouched, unclean. She does not speak, she only reaches. Her fingers brush the edge of his garment, and he stops. Who touched me? He asks, though he already knows. She trembles as she steps forward, and he calls her daughter, not sinner, not stranger. Daughter, her body is healed, but more than that, her place in the world is restored. And then there is the synagogue leader, Jairus, whose daughter lies dying. He begs Jesus to come, but along the way, the girl's death is confirmed. Too late, they say. Do not bother the teacher. But Jesus continues. He takes her hand. Little girl, arise. And breath returns. Life returns. Her mother weeps. Her father stares in silence. The girl rises and walks. These are not stories of magic. They are moments of mercy wrapped in flesh. We realize that healing in his hands is not just about the body. It is about dignity, belonging, restoration. We walk with him to places no one else will go, to tombs, to outcasts, to souls chained by fear or despair, and he brings light, not with thunder, but with presence. Even when the crowds grow too loud, too needy, he does not turn cold, but he does retreat into the hills, into prayer, not to escape us, but to stay aligned with the Father, the source of all he gives, and when he returns full, ready to give again. We begin to understand that these miracles are not detours from his message. They are the message embodied. Healing is not a spectacle. It is a sign of a kingdom where wholeness replaces shame, where no one is too far gone. We walk beside him, hearts opening. He does not ask if we deserve it. He does not weigh our history. He simply sees us. And when he sees, he touches. And when he touches, we are changed, not just in body, but in spirit. Because in his mercy, we remember what it means to be human again, what it means to be seen, what it means to be whole. We find ourselves again beside the Sea of Galilee, its surface still beneath a silver moon. The crowds have faded, the noise of the day has hushed, and Jesus, weary from teaching and healing, steps into a boat with his disciples. The sky is calm, the waves gentle, and the air thick with salt and quiet expectation. They push off from shore, their boat cutting silently across the water. Around them, the world sleeps. Even the sea seems to rest. Jesus finds a cushion in the stern, lays his head down, and closes his eyes. Sleep takes him easily, but storms like life often come without warning. We feel it first in the wind, a subtle shift, then a sudden force. The air grows cold, the water turns. Waves rise like darkened shoulders, lifting and falling with increasing fury. Lightning streaks across the sky, and the peaceful journey becomes a struggle to survive. The disciples panic. Their voices rise against the wind, calling, shouting, bailing water with trembling hands. Some are fishermen, seasoned and strong, but even they are afraid. The boat groans beneath the weight of crashing waves, and the storm threatens to tear them from the surface of the sea. But Jesus does not stir. Not at first. He sleeps as chaos circles, until they rush to him, shaking him, crying out above the thunder, "Teacher, don't you care that we're drowning?" And then he opens his eyes, calm, steady. He rises, not in haste but in holy authority. He does not rebuke them first. He speaks to the storm, "Peace, be still." The words cut through the wind like a blade through fog, and immediately the storm ceases. The waves flatten. The sea becomes like glass. The air softens. Silence returns. Not the silence of dread, but of awe. The disciples are breathless. The storm is gone, but their hearts pound. And Jesus looks at them, not with anger, but with quiet challenge. "Why are you so afraid?" he asks. "Do you still have no faith?" We stand among them, drenched and shivering. But more than that, we are stunned, not just by the stillness of the sea, but by the stillness in him. This is no ordinary man. "Who is this?" they whisper, "that even the wind and waves obey him?" We realize in that moment that the storm outside was nothing compared to the fear within, and he quieted both, not with might, but with presence, not with a show of strength, but with the certainty of who he is. As the boat drifts now in perfect calm, the stars blink down, and the water reflects the heavens. We sit in the silence, humbled. The sea had no reason to calm, but it did, because he spoke, and because he was in the boat. They were never truly in danger. We think of our own storms, those unseen, those endured in silence, and we begin to understand. Peace is not the absence of waves. It is the presence of Christ in the midst of them. We remember this as we drift across the moonlit sea. with the scent of rain still in the air and a new reverence settling in our bones. The man who sleeps through storms also commands them, and in that truth we find rest. We follow him now into open country, where the hills roll gently and the air smells of grass and sun-warmed stone. The crowds have grown, no longer dozens, but thousands. They come not just for healing, but for something deeper, something they can't quite name. Mothers with children, elders with walking sticks, young men with searching eyes. They follow him across rivers and ridges, through the heat of the day and into the fading light. Jesus speaks little as they walk, but his presence draws them like water in a desert. At last, he stops. The hillside becomes a sanctuary. The people settle on the ground, shoulder to shoulder, breath to breath. There is no fanfare, only hunger. Of the body, yes, but also of the heart. He begins to teach, not as a ruler, but as one who sees into the soul. The words are not recorded in this moment, but the hearts are. And the day stretches on. The sun sinks. The disciples grow anxious. Send them away, they say quietly, so they can find food. But Jesus does not dismiss. He sees not inconvenience, but opportunity. You give them something to eat, he says. They are stunned. The crowd is too large, the land too empty. There is no market, no money, no plan. But one of them, Andrew, speaks up. There's a boy here. He has 5 loaves and 2 fish. We look to the child, small among the many, holding a basket in his lap. It is barely enough for a few, let alone thousands. But Jesus takes the offering. He does not scoff at its size. He gives thanks. He lifts his eyes to heaven and blesses the bread, the fish, the moment. Then he breaks the loaves and breaks them again and again and again. The baskets move through the crowd. Hands stretch out. Not one returns empty. There is no rush, no scarcity. The food does not run out. It multiplies in the mystery of his mercy. We sit among them, chewing bread still warm, fish that tastes of the sea, and something dawns in us. This is not just nourishment. It is abundance, given freely, received by all. No one is turned away. No one is asked to prove their worth. The rich and poor, the sick and the strong, all are fed from the same hands. When the meal is over, the disciples gather what remains. 12 baskets overflowing. More than they started with, more than they imagined. We sit in silence, stunned, not just at the miracle, but at the heart behind it. Jesus could have sent the people away. He could have taught, then walked on. But he stayed. He met their hunger with compassion. And he reminded us all that in his kingdom, no offering is too small and no soul too many. We watch as the boy who gave his lunch is folded back into the crowd, no longer unnoticed, but part of a miracle. And we begin to understand. The kingdom of God is not about lack. It is about presence. And in the hands of Jesus, even the little we have becomes more than enough. Night has fallen again on the Sea of Galilee. The crowds are gone, fed and filled, scattered across the hills in wonder. Jesus, sensing the need for solitude, sends his disciples ahead by boat. Go on before me, he says gently, to the other side. They obey, though they do not fully understand. And as they pull away from the shore, he turns toward the mountain. We watch him climb, his figure fading into the shadows. Alone now, he prays. Not for show, not for ritual, but for connection. With the Father, with the stillness, with the mystery of what lies ahead. Below, on the water, the disciples row. The sea is restless tonight. Wind lashes against the boat. Waves rise in slow, swelling anger. The oars groan, the night deepens, and fear begins to whisper again. They are alone, or so it seems. Hours pass. The stars blink overhead. The wind shows no mercy. And then, just before dawn, something shifts. One of them sees it first. A shape, a figure, walking not on land, but on the sea. At first, they cry out in fear. "It's a ghost," they shout, hearts pounding, minds racing. Because what else could it be? But then the voice comes, clear, calm, carried over water and wind. "Take heart. It is I. Do not be afraid." And we know that voice, the one that calms storms, the one that heals sickness, the one that calls us out of fear. Peter, impulsive and bold, stands. "Lord, if it's really you, tell me to come to you on the water." And Jesus answers with one word, "Come." Peter steps out, not into certainty, but into trust. The sea holds him. For a moment, miracle meets muscle. He walks, but the wind roars again, and fear claws its way back in. Peter looks down, and the water rises to meet him. He sinks. "Lord, save me," he cries. And Jesus is there, immediately, without hesitation. He reaches out, grasps Peter's hand and lifts him. "You of little faith," he says softly, "why did you doubt?" Together they climb into the boat. And just like that, the wind stops. The sea rests. The storm surrenders. And those in the boat worship him, not with performance, but with awe. "Truly," they whisper, "you are the Son of God." We sit among them, soaked and breathless. The silence is no longer terrifying. It is holy. We look at Peter, shaken but safe, and we see ourselves. We too step out in faith, then falter in fear. We too are caught by mercy. We realize the miracle was not just that Jesus walked on water. It was that he invited someone else to do the same. And when that someone sank, he did not let go. The sea reflects the first light of morning. The journey continues. But we carry with us a new understanding. That even when our faith is small, his hand is strong. That even when we sink, we are never beyond his reach. And that the impossible is not far away. It is just one word away. Come. We climb now, step by step, up the side of a mountain. The path is steep, the air thinning with altitude. Jesus walks ahead, quiet but sure, his robe brushing the dust, his eyes lifted toward the summit. With him are three, Peter, James, and John. The others remain behind, unaware of what is about to unfold. The sun is high, the sky is clear, and everything seems as it always has been. Ordinary, solid, earthbound. But this mountain is not like the others, and this moment is not like any before. They reach the top. The wind hushes. The trees stand still. And then, before their eyes, he changes. Not in word, but in radiance. His face begins to shine, brighter than the sun, brighter than they can comprehend. His clothes turn dazzling white, pulsing with light that does not belong to this world. They do not move. They cannot. This is not something they were taught to expect. It is something their spirits remember. And then, suddenly, they are not alone. Two figures appear beside him, Moses and Elijah, the law and the prophets. Centuries collapsed into a single moment. They speak with Jesus, as if finishing a conversation that began long before the world turned. There is no fear in them, only glory. Peter, overwhelmed, does what he always does. He speaks. "Lord," he says, "it is good for us to be here. Let me build 3 shelters. One for you, one for Moses, one for Elijah." But even as the words leave his lips, a cloud descends, not of shadow, but of brilliance. It envelops them completely, and a voice speaks, not from beside them, but from within the light itself. "This is my son, whom I love. Listen to him." And they fall, face to the ground, hearts thunderstruck. This is not merely awe. This is holy fear, the kind that makes the soul tremble with recognition. And then, just as suddenly, it is gone. The light fades, the cloud lifts, and they look up to see only Jesus, standing alone, his face calm again. The mountain is quiet once more. The sky is blue. The wind returns, but nothing is as it was. He reaches out and touches them. "Get up," he says. "Do not be afraid." And they rise, not because they understand, but because they have seen. As they descend, he tells them to keep this moment to themselves, for now. "Tell no one," he says, "until the Son of Man is raised from the dead." They do not understand what he means, not yet, but the memory burns inside them. We walk with them in silence down the mountain path. We try to make sense of what we've seen, what we've felt, and we realize we cannot. Some moments are not meant to be explained, only carried. This is one of them, a glimpse, a revelation, not of what might be, but of what always was, hidden beneath skin, beneath silence, beneath the humility of dust and sandals. On this mountain, they saw glory, not in thunder or fire, but in the face of the one they followed. And we understand now, divinity does not always declare itself. Sometimes it waits, quietly, faithfully, until we are ready to see. And once we do, nothing is ever the same. We gather again beneath the olive trees, the light shifting softly through the leaves as Jesus begins to speak. Not in sermons this time, but in stories, simple stories. Yet within them, entire worlds unfold. The crowds press in, eager, uncertain, hopeful. And he does not lecture, he tells parables, and through them, the kingdom of heaven comes near. "There was a man," he begins, "who had 100 sheep, and when one was lost, he left the 99 to find it." We imagine the hills, the thorns, the distance, and we feel the weight of that single sheep, trembling in the shadows. The shepherd does not forget. He searches, he climbs, he calls, and when he finds it, he does not scold. He lifts it to his shoulders, rejoicing, and we understand. This is not about livestock. This is about us. We are the one. He tells us next of a woman with 10 silver coins. When she loses one, she lights a lamp. She sweeps the house. She searches until it is found. And when she finds it, she calls her neighbors to celebrate. "Rejoice with me," she said. "What was lost is now found." Again, we see ourselves, not as forgotten, but as sought after, desired, celebrated. But it is the third story that lingers longest. There was a man who had 2 sons. The younger demands his inheritance. He leaves, he squanders. He ends up in filth and famine, longing to eat what the pigs leave behind. And then, something stirs. Not pride, not shame, but a memory of home. He returns, rehearsing apologies, expecting rejection. But the father sees him while he is still far off. He runs, he embraces, he clothes him, he feeds him, and he says to all who will listen, "This son of mine was dead and is alive again. He was lost and is found." The crowd is silent now. The older son's story follows. His anger, his bitterness, his distance even within the house. But Jesus does not condemn him. He simply lets the question hang. Will the elder brother come inside? Will grace be accepted or resisted? These stories are more than lessons. They are windows into the heart of God. They show us a Father who seeks, who waits, who rejoices, not when we are perfect, but when we turn toward home. The kingdom, we realize, is not for the polished. It is for the prodigal, not for the counted, but for the one who wandered. Jesus speaks of mustard seeds, of hidden treasures, of nets cast wide. He speaks of grace so expansive it makes room for the least, the last, the overlooked. And as he tells these stories, something opens in us. We begin to believe that maybe we are not too far gone. Maybe no one is. We carry these parables in our minds like seeds in the pocket of the soul. They do not always bloom at once, but they remain, waiting, rooting, reminding us that the heart of heaven beats not for the perfect, but for the lost, and that even when we forget how to find our way back, there is always someone searching, always someone watching, always someone ready to run when we appear on the horizon. The sun is high over Samaria, and the road is long. Dust clings to our feet, and the heat presses down like a heavy breath. Jesus walks ahead, his pace steady, but unhurried. When we reach the village of Sychar, he stops, not at an inn, but at a well. Jacob's well, ancient, deep, a place of history and thirst. The disciples go into the town to find food. Jesus remains alone, seated beside the stone mouth of the well. His robe settles in the dirt. His hands rest quietly in his lap. And then she comes, a woman, alone, at noon. Her steps are cautious, her eyes wary. Women do not draw water at this hour, not unless they seek to avoid others. She carries more than a jar. She carries shame. And yet, she comes. She lowers the bucket. The rope creaks. The water rises. And then he speaks. "Will you give me a drink?" She stops. Her eyes search his face. She sees what we all would see, a Jewish man. And she is Samaritan. The divide between them is ancient and deep. "You are a Jew," she says slowly, "and I am a Samaritan woman. How can you ask me for a drink?" But he does not retreat. He does not explain the social laws or the religious expectations. He speaks of water, living water. "If you knew the gift of God," he says, "you would have asked me, and I would have given you living water." She frowns. "You have nothing to draw with. The well is deep. Where can you get this living water?" And he answers, not with logic, but with invitation. "Everyone who drinks this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks the water I give them will never thirst." We watch her face shift, from suspicion to curiosity. "Sir," she says, "give me this water so that I won't get thirsty and have to keep coming here." He nods gently, but then he does something unexpected. He touches the ache beneath the surface. "Go," he says. "Call your husband and come back." Her breath catches. "I have no husband," she replies. "You're right," he says. "You've had 5, and the man you now have is not your husband." The truth lands like a stone dropped into water, rippling through everything she's tried to hide. And yet, there is no judgment in his voice, only knowing. She shifts again. "I can see that you're a prophet," she says. She speaks of worship, of mountains, of what divides them. And he replies not with answers, but with revelation. A time is coming, and has now come, when the true worshippers will worship the Father in spirit and in truth. She nods, still unsure. "I know that Messiah is coming. When he comes, he will explain everything." And then, the moment blooms. He says, "I, the one speaking to you, I am he." We feel the air change. This is the first time he has said it so clearly. And he says it not to a king, not to a priest, not to a disciple. He says it to her, a Samaritan woman with a story she thought disqualified her from being seen. And yet, she is seen. Just then, the disciples return. They are surprised, confused, but she does not wait. She leaves her jar. The very reason she came. She runs into the village, shouting, "Come, see a man who told me everything I ever did." Could this be the Messiah? And the people come. They follow her urgency, her wonder, her transformation. Many believe, not just because of what she said, but because of what they hear for themselves. And we understand. He did not come just for the righteous. He came for the thirsty, for those drawing water in the heat of shame, for those who think they must avoid the crowd. He meets us at the well. He speaks, he sees, and in doing so, he restores. The woman came to the well alone. She left surrounded by a story she could not keep to herself, because when grace meets truth, silence gives way to testimony, and the thirsty become wells themselves, spilling living water into a world that still waits by dry places. We move now through the rolling hills outside Jerusalem, where olive groves sway and sheep graze quietly in the distance. The land is open here, and the sky stretches wide. Jesus walks with us among the stones and the thorns, and as he often does, he begins to speak in images, not distant or abstract, but rooted in the earth beneath our feet. "I am the gate," he says. "Whoever enters through me will be saved." The words fall gently, but with weight. We think of the sheepfolds built along the hills, low stone walls with a single opening, guarded at night by the shepherd himself, who lies across the threshold to keep the sheep in and the danger out. There is no door. The shepherd is the door. His body becomes the protection. And suddenly, the metaphor begins to unfold into meaning. "I am the good shepherd," Jesus continues. "The good shepherd lays down his life for the sheep." We walk in silence, letting the word settle. This is no hired hand who runs when the wolf appears. This is one who stays, who knows each sheep by name, who calls, and they come, not out of fear, but out of trust. Goes on. "The thief comes only to steal and kill and destroy, but I have come that they may have life, and have it abundantly." We feel the contrast between the one who climbs in by another way and the one who enters through the gate, between the one who exploits and the one who protects, between death and abundance. His voice is calm, but there is urgency beneath it. "I know my sheep," he says, "and my sheep know me, just as the Father knows me, and I know the Father." It is intimacy he describes, not merely direction. Relationship, not just rule. And it is not limited. "I have other sheep," he adds, "that are not of this fold. I must bring them also. They too will listen to my voice, and there shall be one flock, one shepherd." The boundaries expand, the grace widens. We are all being gathered, not into confinement, but into belonging. The hills stretch far, and yet his voice reaches further. We think of the times we wandered, the cliffs we approached, the brambles we fell into, and we begin to see that we have not been alone, that a voice has always been calling, that a shepherd has always been searching. And when we could not walk, he lifted us. When we strayed, he pursued. When we resisted, he waited. The image becomes personal, no longer just pastoral poetry, but a promise. We are not nameless, we are known. And more than that, we are wanted. The Good Shepherd lays down his life for the sheep. He does not say it with drama. He says it like a fact already settled. We do not fully understand what he means, not yet. But something in us begins to ache with recognition. This is not just about sheep. This is about us, and him, and a love strong enough to become a gate, a guard, a path, a sacrifice. As the wind moves through the grass and the sheep lift their heads to the horizon, we begin to understand. We are not being led by force. We are being invited. And the voice that calls us knows every valley we've crossed, every wound we carry, and still speaks our name with kindness. The Good Shepherd does not lose his sheep. He finds them. He calls them. He carries them home. We walk now to Bethany, a small village nestled in the hills, quiet and grieving. News has reached Jesus. Lazarus is dead, his dear friend, the brother of Mary and Martha. But Jesus does not rush. He remains where he is for 2 more days. The disciples are confused. "Lord," they say, "if he is sick, shouldn't we go?" But he answers in mystery. This sickness will not end in death. It is for God's glory. And so we wait. When at last he says, "Let us go," they follow. But the journey is long, and by the time they arrive, Lazarus has been in the tomb 4 days. The air is thick with mourning. When Martha hears he is near, she runs to meet him, her eyes red, her voice breaking. "Lord," she says, "if you had been here, my brother would not have died." But beneath her grief is still a flicker of faith. "Even now," she whispers, "I know God will give you whatever you ask." Jesus meets her pain with presence. "Your brother will rise again," he says. She nods. "I know," she says, "at the resurrection, on the last day." But he shakes his head. "I am the resurrection and the life," he says. "Whoever believes in me will live, even though they die." The words hang between them, more than comfort, a declaration. Martha runs to fetch Mary, and when Mary arrives, she falls at his feet, echoing her sister's cry. "Lord, if you had been here." And this time, Jesus does not speak. He weeps, not with the despair of one without hope, but with the ache of love entering sorrow. He weeps with them, and for them, for all of us who have ever stood outside a tomb feeling the finality of stone. Then he rises. "Where have you laid him?" he asks. They lead him to the tomb. It is a cave sealed with a large stone. "Take away the stone," he says. Martha hesitates. "Lord, he has been there 4 days. The smell." But Jesus answers, "Did I not tell you that if you believe, you will see the glory of God?" And so they move the stone. The opening yawns dark before them. Jesus lifts his eyes. "Father," he says, "I thank you that you have heard me. I say this for those standing here, that they may believe you sent me." And then, with a voice that shakes the silence of death itself, he cries out, "Lazarus, come forth." We hold our breath. The tomb remains still. Then movement, a sound, and out of the darkness a figure appears, bound in linen, face wrapped in cloth, alive. Lazarus stumbles forward. Jesus says, "Unbind him, let him go." And they do. The mourners gasp. Some fall to their knees. Others turn and run to spread the word. We stand stunned, watching life return where death had ruled. This is no trick, no symbol. This is resurrection, standing at the threshold of a tomb and proving that love goes further than loss. We begin to understand. Jesus does not just promise life, he commands it. He does not just comfort the grieving, he breaks the grip of the grave. And yet, we also feel the tension rising. Not everyone rejoices. Some leave to inform the authorities. The seed of betrayal is planted here, in the wake of a miracle. But for now, we sit beside Lazarus. We see the linen unwinding, the breath returning, the embrace of sisters once again whole. And we begin to believe, not just in a teacher, not just in a prophet, but in one who holds the keys of life and death in his hands, one who weeps with us, one who calls us out, one who will not let even the grave have the final word. The road into Jerusalem winds before us like a thread of dust and prophecy. The city glimmers ahead, ancient and heavy with history. Pilgrims flood the roads, voices rising in anticipation. It is Passover, the season of remembrance, when the people recall their deliverance and hope again for freedom. And Jesus walks toward it, knowing what awaits. But he does not flinch. As we approach the Mount of Olives, he pauses. Then he sends 2 of his disciples ahead with a quiet instruction. "Go into the village. You will find a donkey tied there with her colt beside her. Untie them and bring them to me. If anyone asks, say only, 'The Lord needs them.'" They obey. And it happens just as he said. The donkey and her colt are brought. Cloaks are laid across their backs. And Jesus mounts, not a war horse, but a beast of burden. Not with armor, but with peace. We have seen kings before. We know how power arrives, on stallions with trumpets and banners. But not this king. He comes gentle, riding on a donkey, fulfilling a promise whispered centuries before. "See, your king comes to you, righteous and victorious, lowly and riding on a donkey." The disciples walk beside him, their eyes wide, their hearts thudding. Others begin to gather, peasants and pilgrims, children and elders. They lay their cloaks on the road. They cut branches from the trees. They wave them high, and the cry rises like a song long held in silence. "Hosanna to the Son of David. Blessed is he who comes in the name of the Lord." The sound rolls ahead of him, through the city gates, echoing off the stone. And still he rides, calm, focused. The crowd sees a king, and they rejoice, but they do not yet understand what kind of king he is. Some expect revolt, others expect restoration, few expect the cross. We follow him through the city gates, into streets where voices cheer and eyes glisten with hope. But there are others watching too, religious leaders, power holders, hearts tight with fear and anger. "Who is this?" they ask, and the answer moves from mouth to mouth. "This is Jesus, the prophet from Nazareth." But he is more than that. He is the king whose kingdom is not of this world. He is the Messiah, not of conquest, but of compassion. He is the fulfillment of longing, the arrival of light, the Word made flesh entering the holy city, not with might, but with mercy. The road is short now. The cheers still ring. But even as they shout Hosanna, the shadow of the cross grows longer, and Jesus knows. He sees the crowds, the city, the coming betrayal. Still, he does not turn away, because love does not retreat. It rides forward, into the heart of suffering, into the center of misunderstanding, into the place where peace will cost everything. And we walk behind him, heart stirring with a mix of celebration and unspoken sorrow. We wave branches, yes, but we also begin to wonder, what kind of king is this, who comes not to take but to give, not to dominate but to die? We are beginning to learn that victory may not look like we thought, and that sometimes the path to resurrection begins with a donkey and a road paved in palms. Evening settles over Jerusalem like a slow breath, and the streets grow still. Inside an upper room, a table has been prepared. The air is warm with the scent of roasted lamb, bitter herbs, and wine. We enter quietly, following Jesus and the 12 into the flickering light of oil lamps. This is no ordinary meal. It is Passover, the feast of remembrance, the night when generations before were delivered from bondage. But tonight, another kind of freedom is about to unfold. They gather, these friends and followers, around the table. Some still confused, some uncertain, all unaware that before the next sunset, everything will change. Jesus looks around at the faces of those he has walked with, taught, forgiven, wept with, and he rises. He takes off his outer robe, wraps a towel around his waist, and kneels. We hold our breath. The teacher has taken the place of a servant. One by one he washes their feet, calloused, dust-covered, worn. He cups the heel of Judas. He cradles the toes of Peter. There is no distinction in his love. When he finishes, he looks up and says, "Do you understand what I have done for you?" And we realize we do not fully. "You call me teacher and Lord," he says, "and rightly so. Now that I have washed your feet, you also should wash one another's. He returns to the table, and the meal begins. They eat. They pass the bread and the cup, but something weighs in the room. A heaviness. Jesus speaks. One of you will betray me. The words fall like stones. Shock ripples across the faces of his friends. Is it I? They ask one after another. He answers quietly. It is the one to whom I give this piece of bread. And he gives it to Judas. Their eyes meet. Judas stands, and Jesus says, "What you are about to do, do quickly." He leaves. The door shuts behind him. Night falls deeper. Jesus turns to the others. His voice is soft, yet filled with purpose. "This is my body," he says, taking the bread, breaking it. "Given for you. Do this in remembrance of me." He lifts the cup. "This is my blood of the covenant, poured out for many for the forgiveness of sins." They drink, unsure of what it means, but sensing its weight. Something holy is being spoken into the fabric of time. A new covenant, not written in stone, but in flesh. Not kept by ritual, but by love. He speaks of the vine and the branches, of abiding, of fruit that lasts. He promises the coming of the Holy Spirit, a comforter, a guide. He prays over them, not as a king giving orders, but as a father blessing his children. His words stretch into eternity. May they be one, as we are one. Father, I want those you have given me to be with me where I am. The meal ends. They sing a hymn together, and then they rise. The night awaits. Gethsemane lies ahead, and with it, agony, betrayal, trial, and the cross. But in this room, a covenant has been given. A pattern of love etched in bread and wine, in towel and basin, in silence and surrender. And we are invited to the table still. Not because we are worthy, but because he is. And he has made space for us in the breaking, in the pouring, in the remembering. This is how love prepares itself to suffer. With a meal, with a song, with a gift no hand can repay. Night has fallen fully now. The moon glows pale behind a veil of olive branches, and the city lies hushed behind them. We walk with Jesus across the valley, into the quiet shadows of Gethsemane. It is not far from the noise, but it feels like a different world, tucked beneath the trees, wrapped in darkness and silence. The air smells of pressed earth and oil. The leaves whisper above. Jesus pauses. His eyes are tired, but focused. "Sit here while I go and pray," he tells his disciples. He takes Peter, James, and John a little farther, but even they can only go so far. "My soul is overwhelmed with sorrow to the point of death," he says. "Stay here and keep watch with me." Then he moves alone into the deepest part of the garden. We follow with quiet steps, hearts heavy. We see him kneel, fall, press his face into the soil, and the words begin, torn from the depth of suffering. "Father, if it is possible, let this cup pass from me." His voice breaks, and then silence. A silence so thick it swallows the stars. Then comes the surrender. "Yet not as I will, but as you will." He weeps, not with despair, but with the full weight of what is to come. The betrayal, the mocking, the scourging, the nails, the sin of the world, our sin. His body trembles. The sweat runs like blood. Heaven is silent, and still he prays. He returns to the disciples and finds them asleep. "Could you not keep watch with me for 1 hour?" he asks. There is no anger, only sorrow. He returns to pray again. The words are fewer this time. More tears, more surrender. "Your will be done." A third time he returns. A third time he finds them sleeping, their spirits willing, their flesh weak. The moment has arrived. He stands. The sound of footsteps breaks the silence. Lanterns flicker in the dark. A crowd emerges, armed, restless. Judas steps forward, his face hard with decision. He kisses Jesus on the cheek. The betrayal is complete. "Friend," Jesus says, "do what you came for." And the guards move. Peter, waking into chaos, draws a sword. He lashes out. The high priest's servant cries out in pain. But Jesus intervenes. "Put your sword away," he says. "Shall I not drink the cup the Father has given me?" He touches the servant's ear. He heals him, right there, in the moment of arrest. Love does not lose its power in the face of violence, and then he is taken, bound, led away. The disciples scatter, fear rising like a wave. The garden empties. The prayers hang in the air. The olive trees witness everything. We remain for a moment, still in the dark, still among the shadows, and we understand something deep and unspoken. That surrender is not weakness. That agony does not cancel obedience. That love, in its truest form, chooses the harder road. Jesus did not escape the garden. He did not run from the cup. He took it, drank it, emptied it for us. And we walk away from Gethsemane forever changed. Not because we understand everything, but because we have seen what love looks like when it kneels in the dark and says, "Yes." The sky is dim, though morning has come. A hush hangs over Jerusalem like a held breath. The trial has ended, the sentence pronounced, and now we walk the path of sorrow, the Via Dolorosa, following Jesus as he carries his cross. The wood is heavy, his body already broken, stripped, beaten, mocked. A crown of thorns presses into his scalp, each step another echo of pain. The crowds press in, some jeering, others weeping. Roman soldiers bark orders. The road winds uphill. The weight of the cross buckles his knees. He falls, and we feel the ground shake with his agony. A man from Cyrene is pulled from the crowd. Simon. He is made to carry the cross behind Jesus. No words pass between them. Just breathe. Just burden. We reach the place called Golgotha, the place of the skull. There is no shade, only dust, blood, and sky. They lay him down. They stretch his arms wide. The hammer rises, and the nails fall, into flesh, into wood, into silence that screams. They lift the cross, and it stands between two thieves. One mocks, the other pleads. "Remember me," he says. And Jesus, gasping, replies, "Today you will be with me in paradise." The hours pass. The sun begins to darken. The wind grows still. His mother stands nearby. So does John, the beloved disciple. Jesus looks at them both. "Woman, behold your son. Son, behold your mother." Even in his pain he provides. Even in his dying he loves. The sky grows darker still. The earth trembles. Jesus cries out in Aramaic, "Eli, Eli, lama sabachthani?" My God, why have you forsaken me?" We feel the weight of that cry, the sorrow of separation, the mystery of divine silence. And yet, we also sense that this is not despair. It is a fulfillment of the Psalms, a final journey through every valley we have ever known. He thirsts. They offer vinegar. He tastes. And then he speaks the words that shape eternity. It is finished. He bows his head and gives up his spirit. The earth shudders. Rocks split. The temple curtain tears from top to bottom. A Roman centurion, eyes wide with awe, whispers, "Surely this man was the Son of God." We stand frozen. There is no music, no flash of light, just the limp body of the Messiah, hanging between heaven and earth. A man named Joseph of Arimathea steps forward, bold and quiet. He asks for the body. Pilate agrees. Jesus is taken down, wrapped in linen, laid in a tomb cut from stone. A great rock is rolled before the entrance, and there the world holds its breath. We leave the hill of the skull, not with answers, but with reverence, because we have seen the cost of grace. We have watched love bleed, we've heard salvation cry out, "It is finished." And we carry that moment within us, knowing that what died on the cross was not just a body, but the power of sin, the weight of shame, the distance between us and the God who now draws near. The cross stands, not as a symbol of defeat, but as a door, and the blood that stained it has become the ink of a new covenant, written in pain, sealed in sacrifice, opened by love. Dawn breaks gently over Jerusalem. The sky blinks open in soft hues of rose and gold. The city is still wrapped in silence, but something is stirring. We walk now with Mary Magdalene and the other women toward a garden near the place of the skull. They carry spices, not expectations. Their hearts are heavy. Their grief is fresh. The tomb is sealed, or so they believe. The path is quiet, the stone paths cold beneath their sandals. Birds begin to stir in the trees, unaware of the miracle about to unfold. When they reach the tomb, they stop. Their breath catches. The stone, it has been rolled away. Fear mingles with wonder. Who moved it? Why? They step closer. The tomb is open. They enter, and inside, it is empty. The linen that once wrapped his body lies folded still, but the body is gone. Before the questions can fully form, a voice speaks. "Why do you look for the living among the dead?" The women turn. A man in shining clothes stands before them. Not fearsome, not harsh, but radiant, holy. "He is not here," the angel says. "He has risen, just as he said." And just like that, everything changes. Death has not won. The silence has not had the final word. He is risen. They run. Their feet barely touch the earth. They race through the garden, through the streets, back to the disciples, breathless, overwhelmed. "He is alive," they cry. "The tomb is empty." But some doubt. The words seem too wild, too much. Peter rises. He runs to the tomb. He finds it, as they said, empty. But he does not yet understand. That night, behind locked doors, Jesus appears, not as a ghost, not as a memory, but in flesh, with scars, with peace. "Do not be afraid," he says. And their fear melts into joy. He breathes on them, gives them peace, purpose, presence. One by one, he appears. To Mary in the garden, to two walking on the road, to Thomas, who needs to see the wounds for himself. And always, the words are the same. "Peace be with you." He is not angry. He is not distant. He's alive. And in that life, hope is rekindled. Not just for them, but for us. Because the tomb was not the end. It was the beginning. The place where sorrow became song, where despair was shattered by light. We stand in the garden now, our own hearts racing, and we understand resurrection is not just a moment, it is a person. Jesus is alive, and nothing, not even death, can separate us from the love he brings. We walk forward now, not with all the answers, but with the deepest truth of all still echoing in our souls. The tomb is empty, and because of that, everything has changed. We stand now in the space between then and now, with the empty tomb behind us and the horizon stretched before. Jesus has risen. Death has been undone. But he does not vanish. He walks among them still. He appears in locked rooms and on lonely roads. He breaks bread. He speaks peace. He reminds them of everything he has taught, not as memory, but as mission. "Go," he says, "and make disciples of all nations." Not go with fear, but with confidence. Not with swords, but with love. And surely I am with you always, to the very end of the age. We walk with him once more to the Mount of Olives, the same place where he wept, where he prayed, where he surrendered. Now he stands before them one last time. His voice is steady, his eyes are kind. He lifts his hands in blessing, and then he is lifted. not in death, but in glory. The sky receives him, the earth holds its breath, and the disciples stand watching the space where heaven met earth. An angel appears beside them. "Why do you stand here looking into the sky?" he asks. "This same Jesus will come back in the same way you saw him go." We stay in that silence, letting the weight of it settle. He is gone, but not absent. His spirit will come. His presence will remain. His love will stretch on through them and through us. And so we turn from the mountain. We walk into the world again, not unchanged, not alone. We walk carrying his words, his way, his wonder. He did not call us to admiration. He called us to imitation, to wash feet, to forgive enemies, to welcome strangers, to feed the hungry, to shelter the forgotten, to love with reckless mercy. The road ahead will not be easy. There will be doubt. There will be resistance. But the story we carry cannot be buried, because resurrection is not just a one-time event. It is a rhythm, a reality, a calling. We have seen the gentle life of Jesus, from manger to miracles, from cross to crown. And now we are invited to continue it, not by our strength, but by his Spirit, not with perfection, but with faith. He is not behind us in history. He is ahead of us in hope, and we walk forward together, with hearts full and eyes fixed on the one who loved us to the end and beyond. This is not the end of the story. It is the beginning. A life poured out, a world transformed, a love without end.